think we have just about everybody. This is one of the... Yeah, this right here. I don't know if we've had this many for one of the seminars, so thank you all for coming for Belly Blues. Eileen Walsh is putting this on. Many of you have probably talked to her here in the store. She's a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for putting this together, Eileen. She's done an excellent job of putting some tremendous material here together. I've kind of looked through the slides, so I'm excited for her to present it to you guys. So I'm going to give the floor to Eileen Walsh.
Thank you, Dave. I'm almost as tall as you tonight. That's pretty exciting. I know, yeah. So thank you guys for coming. Seriously, November's busy, fall's busy. We had Veterans Day, we're going to have Thanksgiving. We have this, the Belly Blues. So just seriously, thank you for coming out tonight. The surveys that you filled out, I appreciate you guys filling those out. And it's just a way of us looking at our own group here and showing that we all, we all have digestive issues of some type or another sometimes. So we'll get a more specific handle on that. Welcome. In just a little while. So, all right. So let's see. What we're going to talk about is what the gut is, and that's going to be a slide. That's a cool picture. We're going to look at what healthy digestion actually looks like. We probably know what it doesn't look like for each of us, but what does it look like? Also, what the microbiome is and what it does. Last but not least, we're just going to go over a few things that we can all do to maybe keep our gut happier this holiday season. I don't know if that's something anyone's interested in. Happy gut? Anyway. So, at this point, the gut system is incredibly complex. We know more probably now about the gut system than obviously we ever have, and we don't know nearly enough. We don't even really know what we don't know. Some of the things that we've been finding out are mind-blowing. So we'll talk some more about some of that later. The studies that are going on worldwide and the information that is coming from those studies is just producing more studies and more information. So one cool thing that I want to share is that we all have a new organ. Congratulations. Did not grow this overnight. This is something that we all already had. It is, in fact, organ number 79, called the Mesentery. And that is hopefully going to be up here in a second. Cool, huh? That is that is amazing. What it is basically a fatty connective tissue that is bound at the backbone and goes from the base of the stomach all the way through the rectum, and it holds our intestines to our gut wall. So that's a good job, Mesentery. But also now they're looking at it. It had previously been thought to just be kind of pieces, of this material throughout the gut system. They've now found that it is one continuous piece. It is, in fact, an organ. They don't know a lot about what it does or does not do, but one of the things that they have found is that it is responsible for, I want to say this just right, regulating the migration of white blood cells throughout the intestines. That seems like a pretty important job. So research is underway. The guys that found this, I want to throw a shout out to the Irish bunch. Not kidding, University of Limerick is where these guys were at when they figured this out. So that's a limerick in the making, but I'm not going to do that. That's not up to me. But so, fun fact, I like fun facts, so I'm going to throw those out here. fun facts about the mesentery. Guess who? Leonardo da Vinci drew this in 1508. And looking at his drawings, honestly, it appears to look like a single organ. I'm just saying. So he may have already had this figured out many years ago. So let me see, I thought I had one more fun fact about the mesentery. No, just the fun thing about the Limerick, University of Limerick. I didn't even know there was a University of Limerick. You got one? Okay. Anyway, if anyone is interested, super interested in more information about this, we actually have an article that gives more information that we can print out for you. So there's enough information about the gut to keep us all involved for an entire school year. So welcome. I hope you brought your backpacks. Just kidding. We're only going to do about an hour. Okay. So, so slide number 4. This one. Very good, Jake. Very good. So, some things about the gut that we may or may not already know. The gut is the second largest organ after the skin that has contact with the outside of the body. That doesn't sound like anything good, does it? I mean, I feel like I want my guts, my innards, to be on the inside of my body. And even though they are, every time we put something in our mouth, it contains the outside environment. So our entire gut system deals with that all day, every day. So that's a pretty amazing job. And I think it is basically no surprise that we have issues. Basically, that's a lot to do. So now number 5, the handout. Yeah. So more fun facts, and we're going to start with the stomach. So you've probably all heard that, the body replaces itself. Hi there. Welcome. Oh, find a seat. Any seat. I see you right there. Okay. Excellent. The cells of the stomach lining are replaced about every 5 days or so. And that's just based on the acidic environment that they're in. So that's interesting. Now the intestine, the internal lining of the intestine is 1 cell thick. So is that a real thing? It's much thinner than, for example, your eyelid. So that kind of sounds like a mixed blessing, doesn't it? So if you're having gut issues, it gives me hope. I mean, if it's going to be all new in 5 days, then I feel like we can do something about that. Also, on the other hand, that 1 cell thick thing makes me feel a little uncomfortable if something's wrong. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So what is healthy digestion? So basically there's a golden few of us, especially 50 plus, that have few complaints about digestion. Okay? We're pretty much regular, we run okay, we don't have too many upset stomachs or other types of things. The next group has decent digestion. They describe their digestion as pretty okay, about 50% of the time. The next group has trouble in this area, probably greater than 50% of the time, which we know means probably greater than 80% of the time. And that's not a formula for great minutes. If you're having trouble with your digestive system 80% of the time. I know more than one person in this room, no names, I'm not going to tell any stories. I've talked to lots of you over there in depth about some of these issues, and more than one of us is actually afraid of food. afraid of the things that it is going to do to our gut once it gets there. It makes eating a chore at best, and it really creates, on the other side of that, some unpleasant minutes. So, what does healthy digestion look like to you guys? Does anyone want to tell me what healthy digestion looks like for you? What do you feel like? I'm running on all cylinders and I feel good. Want to throw something out there? Yes, Brenda?
Mine is just when you eat something, it doesn't cause you any problems.
Right.
You have regular elimination. You know, you feel fine. You don't have reflux. You know.
Right. So everything's just running along smoothly.
In my case, I find out the more vegetables I eat, the better I do.
Well, I like that answer. But it's really true, and we'll talk more about the kinds of things that we eat and what effect they may have, on our stomach too. So that's a really good point. Anyone else? That pretty much.
Basically, it just happens, and I don't notice anything in the absence of symptoms.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, not being socially unacceptable after you've eaten something.
I understand what you're saying. You don't have to specify any further. Absolutely. And that's exactly where we're headed. So the absence of symptoms like nausea, gas, bloating, acid reflux, indigestion, constipation or diarrhea. So that is really what digestive health looks like. Did any survey info? Did you get it?
90% of those here have issues. Some of the things that we've mentioned is the rumbling, discomfort, acid reflux, constipation, bloating, GERD, diarrhea.
Yep.
Infrequent bowel movements.
Infrequent or frequent?
Well, here, let's read all these.
It's a naughty mouse.
So I think just basically what everybody thought.
Yeah, so it's not, we as a sample group are not any different than the folks that are in the studies. So we all deal with this to some extent. So, thank you. Let's talk about what we can do about some of this. Just 1 second. The foundation of our gut health, I'm going to have to say, is gastric acid.
Can you talk a little louder?
Oh, you bet. Wow, no one hardly ever asks me to do that. That is amazing. Heck yeah! I sure will. The foundation of our gut health really starts with gastric acid. And that's not very, glamorous, but that's just the way it is. So we've got the stomach side, and not that y'all don't know what that looks like, but that's just some info. Too much or too little acid causes these same types of symptoms. In reality, we're not only talking about too much or too little. There's actually a volume issue. Unfortunately, as we get older, we slow down in our production of gastric acid. So we're producing less, and it takes us a little bit longer to do that. So, well, that's all I'm going to say about that. It just is what it is. But also, we want to talk about how acidic or alkaline the environment is. I loved natural science as a child, but that's been a minute ago. So we're going to go back over the whole acid-alkaline question a little bit. So, talking about the stomach. The normal volume of stomach acid fluid is 20 to 100 milliliters, not that much, with a pH in a range from 1.5 to 3.5. That's very acidic. Now, there's a note here, due to the logarithmic nature of the pH scale, there is a significant difference between a pH of 1.5 and that of 3.0 or 3.5. So even though it sounds like just a couple of notches up, it's a significant difference in acidity or alkalinity. Okay, so the stomach has a baseline pH of about 2.0. At 2.0, basically all bacteria are going to be killed. Basically. I mean, there's some anaerobic, but we're not going to talk about that. Let's just say basically all bacteria are going to be killed. So that sounds amazing. Well, if that's the pH of our stomach, we're killing all the bacteria, right? That's great news. Not as much, because here's what really happens. That pH value is not maintained for any great length of time. Every time we put something into our body, it changes the pH balance. Water is obviously going to dilute the acid alkaline.
Yeah.
Okay. Is going to, so even water is going to dilute the stomach acid. So when we, for example, take in foods that are more alkaline, it's then going to raise the pH of our stomach, so that then is going to cause us to, well, let me just say it this way. Remember when we talked about the outside world coming in through our gut? Everything that we take in has microbes, bacteria, and other possible antigens, which are unfriendly things. One experiment that we are talking about, 10 pretty awful microorganisms. And by pretty awful, I mean things like E. coli, salmonella, candida is thrown in there. Some of us have had issues with that. At pre-treatment at a pH of 2.0, none of them survived. None. They were all killed. At a pH of 4.0, all of them survived. So what's happening is that as the pH level of our stomach goes up toward the alkaline scale, we're not killing off as many bacteria or microbes or other organisms from the foods and things that we're taking in. Now, our body knows this, and it's all part of it. However, let me talk a little bit more about that. At 3.5 pH, it takes approximately 80 minutes for total kill. So it's still highly acidic, and we're still killing the bacteria. However, 80 minutes, in 80 minutes, greater than 60% of the stomach contents have emptied into the duodenum, which is a much different environment and a much more alkaline. We're looking at a pH of about 7 as opposed to 2. Now, we remember that at 4, all of the bacteria survived. At 7, it's actually a friendly environment for the growth of bacteria. Now, as we look up here, the duodenum is part of the small intestine. So this is not where we want a friendly environment for the growth of unfriendly microorganisms. So, 3 specific conditions are going to allow bacteria to survive through the harsh acidic conditions of the stomach. And that is, we've talked about bacteria that are bound to food constituents. So that's not avoidable. That's just something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to eat. The usage of antacids or acid blockers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And babies. Babies produce lower stomach acid, so that's not going to be a concern for us. We're not babies in here. So Now again, add to this the propensity to produce less stomach acid and take longer doing it. Basically, you can see where trouble might be brewing, literally, right? Now, we've all been trained for decades to believe that stomach acid or too much stomach acid is responsible for most of our digestive issues. The proton pump inhibitors have really become what is called the gold standard for treatment of conditions like chronic, mild indigestion. Not kidding. Yes.
Can you talk about regular?
Oh, yes.
Going down in volume.
Thank you. I will. So the gold standard for treatment of basically any kind of indigestion, whether it's mild, chronic, or acid reflux, GERD, is to prescribe a proton pump inhibitor, which inhibits the production of acid in your stomach. That's the whole job. And I think we can go. Can we go to that slide? Yeah, let's go to that slide now. There have been many studies and developments over the past couple of decades that are showing health issues directly related, associated even, with the use of proton pump inhibitors. These haven't really been made the news. They haven't been made widely public. Yes,
Are you
ma'am.
talking about like Nexium?
Yes.
Because they're showing it increases dementia and Alzheimer's.
Oh, good. Well,
It also
You know?
leads to osteoporosis if you're not digesting, and
Good.
if you're trying to prevent macular degeneration, it prevents the nutrients from getting to the macula because they're not, like if you're taking an eye supplement, they don't get digested well enough to get there.
that's exactly correct. Good job. So I guess now we've got information, which is not to say that there's never a case to take a proton pump inhibitor. I'm not saying that. I am saying that all of these that you've mentioned, including dementia, nephritis, which is basically a swelling in the tubules in the kidneys, bone fractures, an increase, a pretty significant increase in bone fractures, other kidney complications. So this is all coming from either the medicine itself or the effect that it's having on our body. So I'm glad that you have heard of this. Now, where did you come across this information? Just out of curiosity, you guys. Was it
Reading in
Okay.
newspapers and that, but
Western A. Price Foundation.
Oh, absolutely.
Localized traditions.
Absolutely. And it's not that it hasn't happened. I mean, there's been lots of studies done, and the results are in that prolonged use, as you can see. This is just talking about bacterial overgrowth. This is not talking about bone fractures or dementia or any of the other things that we're talking about. So the longer that you use PPIs, the more trouble you're going to be in, basically. If you want a history of the findings, we do have a handout that we can print out. So if some of us haven't seen that information out there, I have looked for it, so I've seen it. But I don't know that it's made the, Fox News or anything. Not sure. Actually, where I found a lot of this information was on the website of a civil litigation attorney who pursues damages for people who have been injured, who are or have a condition that was brought on by use of PPIs. So basically, are there other ways that we can adjust the pH in our gut? Do you think? I mean, we talked about how food can adjust our pH. What about other ways? Any ideas?
What about the probiotics?
That's gonna adjust definitely the biome, and we'll talk about that later. I've got some apple cider vinegar shots over here. We can definitely do a little test if anyone wants to try that. Apple cider vinegar. Yeah, absolutely, lemon. These are just fun. The apple cider vinegar shots that we've got some flavored ones over here, and they're ready to travel and ready to go. If you don't know whether you run more acidic or more alkaline, you can definitely find out by taking about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Does anyone want to do that? Absolutely. Now, if you I tend to run a little bit more acidic, so I'm not going to do that at all in any way, shape, or form. But, yes, ma'am.
Isn't apple cider vinegar the closest thing to your stomach's natural digestive juices?
I actually would not be able to speak to that. So that's interesting. Have you read that?
Oh, lots of places.
Interesting. It's what I found was a furor of controversy about apple cider vinegar, of all things. When I was looking at this, I had no idea that this actually existed. The testimonials from people are numerous, really countless, about how apple cider vinegar has helped their gut issues and some other issues. Of course, we have some, other folks in the health industry saying, well, it's snake oil. It doesn't really change your gut pH that much. There's not any real reason to do that. However, real people say that it seems to
But they were
really
written off as anecdotal evidence.
Right. So, absolutely. So, Jake's going to be over here serving up some shots. Never thought you'd hear that here, huh?
What's the difference between taking apple cider vinegar and just eating other products that there's canned?
Well, that's a good question. There's lots of range in apple cider vinegar. Some of the apple cider vinegars that we sell have what we call a mother or a bacterial element in them. I'm sure that probably has a lot to do with how beneficial they are. Simply changing the pH, as you can tell, it's more likely. So if you're going to digest better, if it's more acidic, so the actual formula is pretty straightforward. So that's part of the controversy. Why is apple cider vinegar so helpful? So that may be part of it. Now you can get pasteurized apple cider vinegar as well. Yes?
My question is, I'm like you, if I take a shot of apple cider vinegar, it's going to burn and hurt a lot.
Yes.
So what about people like that?
Well, you would probably fall more into the category of the baking soda or the more alkaline types of things. And if you shared something with me earlier, so I don't want to necessarily share that at large, but do you do other things to adjust your own, your own stomach acid?
Dr. Lewis has me taking a quarter teaspoon, about an eighth of a teaspoon of baking soda once a day.
Woo! There we go. That's exactly. So, and how does that? Yeah. And that's quite effective, isn't it? It's quite effective because it's doing just that. It's changing the pH level in your stomach back to a more alkaline state. When you are digesting food, you want that to be highly acidic. But when you're just sitting there, trying to watch TV, that's not the best. That's not the best feeling. So that's interesting. I'm really glad to hear that. Huh, wow, that's amazing. And we do also have some baking soda over here. If anyone is feeling, like they.
What's the reason? What causes Why are some people one way and some people
Well, it's actually a complex, that's a complex question. Good question. And lots of things from inflammation to food sensitivities to stress. We may have, allergies that have gone on. We may have anything that would affect your gut. Maybe we've gone out to dinner and we've gotten some, what I call people poisoning. We didn't wash properly. Probably not food poisoning, right? So,
in other words, you can have one time and one the other time.
Absolutely.
You two basically have that all the time, right?
Well, I am able to, through diet, and yes, I meditate, yes, I pray, yes, I exercise, but not this week, I haven't, but I do things. Anytime you increase the health of the specimen, us, you're going to help any system work better. So if I find that, for me, coffee does not bother me one single solitary bit. For some people, that immediately drives they can feel their stomach acid. So it becomes really important to track what's going on. If you want to change it, you have to assess it first, right? So do you typically have, do you run one way or the other?
I'm sorry.
Do you run one way or the other? Do you run more acidic?
I don't know. I'm just asking you because you were.
You bet. I think this is I know, yes, I've tried the apple cider vinegar test. So everyone who doesn't know, this is a great self-test to see.
I've taken it, but I haven't noticed it.
Okay. So
Maybe everything that was helping.
pretty
I
good.
didn't have to tell that.
Absolutely.
When you don't write down on everything's good.
You will, one of a few things will happen. You will either, your stomach will feel like it's burning. Your stomach will thank you and be like, oh, wow, thank you. Or really nothing. You won't notice a difference. And that will tell you kind of where you're at with the more acidic. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now what is the goal? To have more of an alkaline stomach or an acid stomach?
Well, what you really want it to do is be flexible based on what's going on. And again, you can.
You should have more alkaline.
Okay, so in your stomach, in your stomach, in order to digest food. No, not going to do it.
I've tried.
Okay. Yeah. So it is. You want an acidic environment to digest food. Because if you don't have that, you're not able to digest the food before it begins to pass into the small intestine, which is a much more alkaline environment and isn't designed, to digest food, basically. So now, when you're sitting watching television, you don't want your stomach burning. So what do you find? Do you find that you notice your stomach? No? Okay.
It's just that I've always read that you wanted to be more alkaline.
I think, right. And I think probably systemically is more what the whole alkaline versus acidity, conversation is about. Antacid. Mm-hmm.
Antacid medication.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, sir.
Well, you explained what happens when you drink the antacid vinegar. You've got a low acid or a high acid. No, this is just how.
Right. Well,
Would
first
you
of all.
repeat the question? We can't hear the question.
Oh, you bet. The question was, when you drink the apple cider vinegar, are you increasing the acidity or decreasing it?
Let's say if you have low acid.
If you have
high acid,
right.
What would the vinegar do to you?
Okay, if you already have high acid and you take in some acid, not very diluted, you would probably feel a burning sensation. I would. myself. If you have low acid and you take in that pH, then you would probably feel kind of a relaxation. It would feel good to you. If you're about right where you need to be, you're not going to feel anything. Does that mean it's not going to be helpful for your digestion? Not necessarily.
And I'm also, I'll break in here. One of the best ways to test this, if you're a person that typically has some digestive issues, try the vinegar right before the meal. See if you experience those symptoms to the same degree. If they decrease, then you're probably going to have low acid. And I'll also say that, and I think you kind of covered this earlier, but our acid levels decrease throughout the day. So if you're like me, you go home in the evening, and typically that's your largest meal. That's when a person might need more of an apple cider vinegar or a baking hydrochloride, something that's going to help actually push that acid back down.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
So you guys might want to try that. If you have apple cider vinegar at the house, you can try it before the meal.
And
that might be a better way to
having the digestion.
Yes.
It can. It can. I mean,
and it's mainly if your issue is low acid.
Right. Now, now those are travel. We've got much bigger bottles of apple cider vinegar. If some people who use it know, and they don't want a tiny little travel shot, but those are fun. Now, and I think, Jake, you just said this, but I'll say it as well. If you're looking for some lighter kind of digestive help, go ahead and look at 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in water right before meal. See if that is going to, you'll know. Again, pay attention to your body and what your body is telling you.
And a small amount of water. Don't try to dilute it to cover up the taste. Otherwise, you're adding more fluids to the stomach acid, and it's going to further dilute it. So
right. Yeah.
How much did you just give us?
That right there was right about a tablespoon.
Just straight vinegar?
Yeah, that one had a little bit of. Some of these were all kind of spiked.
Yeah.
You might have tasted maple or pineapple or
turmeric,
cinnamon, ginger. Yeah. So it has some other digestives in there. I don't know. It's pre-mixed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So did anybody have any results from that? First of all,
I did.
What'd you think?
It burnt.
Oh, okay. We have some baking soda over there. Do you need some? Do you need the antidote?
I'll be all right.
Okay.
Going down? Yes, going down.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
I can feel it at the back of my throat, but that's all.
So you're
first, yes,
right.
But after that,
So I guess did you enjoy it?
yes.
Okay, excellent. Did you? Not as much. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any results?
My burp a little going down, but I still feel something.
Okay. What do you feel, if you don't mind sharing?
Sort of, I guess a little bit of a burn. Or if there's pressure, I feel something there. It's down lower.
Is it pleasant or unpleasant? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, if it was pleasant, I wouldn't feel it.
Okay, a little burning. And there is. If there's anyone, does anyone need the antidote? Seriously, does anyone need any baking soda? We've got some. No? All right.
Now that you mention it, I almost feel a little warmth and relaxation.
Ah, yes. Yes. That is the other side. So this helped adjust your pH to a more comfortable level for you. It's good. I like it. That was fun. Thank you guys for participating.
What does it mean if she wants to know what that means, and what does it mean if you feel nothing?
If you feel nothing, you're good. You're good.
If it's too high, it typically means that your stomach was pretty acidic to begin with.
Right.
Adding something that's even more acidic was a little bit too much for you. So
She's going to fall with her mouth for you to be concerned.
It does. Typically, your uric wouldn't be as low.
Well, thank you all. That was fun. And now, some of us need a little bit heavier guns. than some apple cider vinegar or some baking soda. We talked a little bit about the proton pump inhibitors, but I wanted to go back toward a little bit more natural way of addressing that. And for whatever reason, sometimes some of us are not able to digest our food properly. There's a million different reasons. We talked about one of them being just our stomach acid, but there are many others. And some of you already know much of this. For example, if you've come in here and told us that you don't have a gallbladder, we probably directed you to some kind of an enzyme. Basically, that this one includes some animal endocrines, and this one is plant-based. So if you are pretty sure you're not digesting your food properly and want to talk to us about that, there are other options available. Basically, what the digestive enzymes do is exactly what it says. They are giving you the things that your body, for whatever reason, is not producing either quickly enough or well enough or etc. So basically, you would take these with a meal, and it would give you the digestive, enzymes that you don't have. So, some more self-tests. We're not going to actually do any more tests here. We're going to talk about transit, and that is exactly what it sounds like, how long it takes something to go through your bowel system and be evacuated. For some of us, this is a big issue. I happen to be a slow metabolizer. I'm just going to say it that way. Basically, the light version goes like this. Eat some beets or drink some beet juice and wait and watch for it to come out. And that'll tell you about how long. That's the really light version. If you believe that you have an issue in this area, there are much more specific tests that you can do at home to track how long it's taking you to process your food. Now, what we're looking at here is most of the folks agree that less than 12 hours or more than 48 hours to pass a food is outside of the range. You want to be inside of that 12 to 48 hours. It's going to depend on the food. Some foods take longer. But if you're not keeping the food for 12 hours, you're not absorbing the nutrients and the other things out of it that you need. So you want to keep a hold of it about at least that long. If you keep a hold of it longer than that, well, I'll leave that to your imagination. So now, I do want to say, in this area, if you think you have serious issues, okay, so let's say maybe you feel like you have maybe even a blockage, don't self-test at home. Don't play with this. It's very serious. If you feel like you have a blockage or something else, see your healthcare provider, okay? It can be a life-threatening situation, okay? Yes.
Is there an overemphasis on a 24-hour cycle rather than just letting it vary between the 12 and 36, depending on what you've eaten and what you've done?
And I think absolutely. And then sometimes it depends on who you talk to. It depends on where you look for that information. The fact of the matter is it takes our body longer to process some foods than others. So right there, you've already got a range. You know, it can't be, I can't make my body do something on that type of schedule. Lots of people have lots of different opinions. And again, I think a range is a healthier way to look at it, because stress can impact how well you digest your food. So stressing about digesting your food, that's just not a good idea. So, right? The Bristol. So another visual. It's come time to talk about this. We can't talk about the digestive system without talking about stool. This is a visual chart. You can see it also talks, it's basically a visual way of self-checking transit. Okay? So, rapid transit, you're looking at, if it's less than 12 hours, you haven't even really basically digested it very well. So, you can, that's pretty self-explanatory. Any questions on that? Or
You can't really see it back here. It's kind of far, so.
Okay.
You need to go a little further in what you're saying. What should you be, a 2, a 6? What do you should
That's a good question. Basically, right in the middle, type 4.
be a 4?
Basically a type 4. So the longer your feces stay in your system, the harder and drier it becomes because your body's continually absorbing from that. The less time, down on the bottom, you're not getting what you need to out of the food. So, yep, about a type 4.
And I thought that people should have at least 1 bowel movement a day, possibly 2.
Well, good. We're looking at a range again. What I found was all kinds of, furor about how often and how well, but what I've come out with is it's a range from 3 times per day. Some folks want you to have a bowel movement after every meal. I'm just going to share that's never happened for me. I don't. That's not okay to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't you think it makes a difference on what you eat and how active you are?
It does. It does.
It's going to affect it.
It has to be a range. It cannot be a simple target number that we're trying to look at. Now, I will say, if you're not having a bowel movement at least once a day, there is a wide opportunity for your life to be better. Come talk to us specifically, okay? So there are lots of things that we can do in adjusting, the types of food, fiber content, hydration, activity, different things that we can do to adjust that fairly easily. So come see us about that. That's just an aside. So, any questions really about the things we've talked about so far?
One thing that's kind of confusing to me, I know they say if someone's battling cancer, the more alkaline they are, the better. But how does that play with your digestion, your stomach? You've got to have some acid to digest the food. Mm-hmm. So it's a little confusing, Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things about that, did you guys hear that question over there?
Something about alkaline.
No. Right. So, especially when folks are talking about cancer and other disease processes, they're saying that you really need to be more alkaline than acidic. And I think they're talking about systemically. Jake, how does the stomach...
I brought this slide back up. Because when we look at this, we don't want to think, it's a misconception. When we say acid, we say alkaline. We got to know the physiology of our bodies.
Right.
It changes throughout. So we talk about alkalinity in our mouth. We talk about the acidity in our stomach. The changing alkaline to a more alkaline environment in the small intestines to the large intestines. So looking at this infographic, there's some of these foods you would say, oh, that's an acidic food, so it's going to be acidic in our body. But what we're looking at is how it's actually digested down. Mm-hmm. So a lot of your stuff on that right-hand side might be more acidic. How our body actually breaks it down and how it burns is going to be more alkaline. So getting more of those foods and looking at, you got to be real careful when you talk about cancer.
Right.
But eating more of those foods that are on the right-hand side that are going to burn alkaline are actually going to be having you take in more phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, all that good stuff. So that's why those can be, in my opinion, more beneficial.
Okay. So as far as Systemic alkalinity. I haven't done much research into
I'll
that
tell you
area.
what, we'll die if our blood goes out of our reach.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
we have a specific, environment in our blood.
Right.
Specific environment, or we want to try to get to a specific range in our stomach. So it changes throughout. I don't like to personally look at the cancer situation as being acid or alkaline.
Right.
I don't think it's that simple. I think we need to look at the foods that are more nutritious for us and that are going to burn more alkaline, which is what we see up there on the right-hand side of the screen. I mean, if you'll notice the foods on the left, we know those aren't very nutritious.
Right.
And those have a tendency to throw us off. And a lot of people know if they go out to eat and they're eating those foods on the left, you can get indigestion pretty easily.
Right.
By eating those types of foods.
That's what it looks like to me. That looks like the
With
danger zone.
consistency,
Right?
If we're eating more on the right-hand side, we're going to promote a better environment.
Okay.
Holistically.
Systemically.
Systemically.
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
We're talking about that. What is alkaline water?
I'll
Oh,
tell you what,
interesting.
drinking water is good for
Right.
alkaline. So just drink water.
Could you repeat the question?
She asked about drinking alkaline water. All water is going to be alkaline.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're selling that. I've been reading about it for 3 or 4 years.
Sure. Now, basically, if you want to get a water and you want to make it more alkaline, add minerals to it. You can get trace minerals that you can add to it. You can get a coral calcium. You can add sea salt. That's going to help you. You could add a bicarbonate. That's a good question. You
Right.
can use baking soda.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people will do that.
I like digestion for a lot of people.
They won't do much for the alkalinity. That's a
Good question.
I thought that was great.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good.
Get rid of the worms.
Yes, sir.
What about cravings?
What about cravings?
Whether your body's more acid, or you're now more alkaline or more alkaline, take those gases.
Well, that's an interesting. Yeah. Exactly. I feel like again, I can't really discuss, like, if you have a craving for blank, it means you're more acidic.
Good example, children matches with sulfur.
Do what?
What was that?
Matches.
Terry?
Sulfur, no, I'm serious. Or eating chocolate.
Right.
Yeah.
Non-food. I'm going to say they need minerals. I don't know. I'm going to let Jake field this
I'm
one.
not sure.
Yeah, so non-food cravings. Another night. We'll talk about that another night. Well, let's talk about the microbiome now. So we all have one. It's not new. What is that? What is the actual definition of it? It is the ecosystem of microorganisms that live in our gut system. So, is anyone else grossed out by that? I mean, that's just, I know that's the way it is, and I know I'm a grown-up, but that just seems, I have a saying now that we are run by the bacteria in our gut. I never thought I would say that sentence in my entire life, and that's a reality. Yes, sir?
I read that there's more bacteria in your gut than you have cells in your body.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about
They
that.
communicate with your brain.
They do. Do you guys just want to give this talk? Good talk. But seriously, those are actually, we're going to talk about that because we have some fun facts coming up because we just started a new subject, right? So,
How long
Yeah.
how long does the bacteria last in that biome?
how long does it last?
Depends on what you feed it.
Yeah.
That's a really great question. I don't have a hard and fast answer, but health of the specimen. So if you're feeding your gut good stuff, the things that keep us healthy, obviously there's some prebiotic, which is basically fiber. So yeah, I don't know. Jake, do you know? That's a good question. I didn't even look at that. Like how long? Like what is the lifespan of
It's ranges.
Uh-huh.
When you look at the intestinal cells, you're talking days.
Right, days. True. So I suppose then it wouldn't
It's an
outlast.
ever-changing environment.
Right, very dynamic.
There's some studies out there that show, if we're having some indigestion or having some leaky gut issues,
Yeah.
they can actually be repaired within 48 hours. And a lot of it includes the dietary fibers that we're taking into
Right.
our system. So if we're focusing on those plant-based foods,
Mm-hmm.
some high-quality grains, if you're using grains, those
Yeah.
types of things, you can change it around real quick. But you can also
Right.
make it go awry real quick.
Real quick, yeah. So every meal is an opportunity. Absolutely. So fun facts. Here come the fun facts. Everyone excited? All right. So you may have heard that we have 10 times more bacteria in our digestive system than in our body. This ratio actually comes from studies that were done in the 70s, and it's not wrong. Newer research from 2016 found that this 10-to-1 ratio is correct only if nucleated cells only are counted. If you add non-nucleated cells, so cells with a nucleus, if you add non-nucleated cells like red blood cells, then the ratio goes down to 1-to-1. So 1 human cell, 1 bacteria. Still pretty significant as far as I'm concerned. 99% of the DNA of our bodies is bacterial DNA. Now, this is a very simplistic synopsis of some very complicated calculations which involve scientific notation of numbers like quadrillions. I didn't even know that was a real number, but you can actually scientifically notate quadrillions, and that's what these folks did to find out that information. So, the Human Genome Project, I think probably some of us have already heard about that. Of course, fascinating. Look it up if you haven't. Scientists are saying that we have fewer genes than a fruit fly, a pineapple, a carrot, so dumber than a box of pineapples. I don't know what to say to that. But what they're finding is, like you said, that they are in constant communication with the cells of our body, our brain. So, Jake, I'm just gonna show you we're just gonna kind of go through some slides about what the gut biome does. We don't have, you guys didn't bring your backpacks, so we cannot stay all night and talk about it. We're gonna focus in on immunity, but every system of our body is affected by our gut biome. That's the bottom line. So we got 13, 14, 15, and 16 on that.
On that one on the bottom, alleviate allergic diseases such as food allergies. They have discovered that babies that are delivered by C-section are more prone to food allergies and asthma because they didn't pick up the bacteria in the mother's birth canal.
Wow. That's absolutely true. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But no, that's absolutely true because that's the next, that's the next question. Let's look at what has already been documented as far as what the microbiome does. And this is not new information. This has been around. Let's see, it's a good list. Synthesizing vitamin K and other essential nutrients, protecting the integrity of your gut lining. Digestion of cellulose, promotes angiogenesis, supports enteric nerve function, prevents kidney stones. That's an interesting one. And of course, keeping your immune system healthy, recognizing self versus non-self. Those of us who have autoimmune conditions know that that's a big deal. And we want our immune system to recognize when it's our own body. So,
what did you say about kidney stones?
That your gut microbiome is key in preventing kidney stones. Right? This is interesting. I actually did not know that. That was something that I learned.
Because I've learned a lot. I've had kidney stones, and I've learned a lot that typical
foods that are supposedly good for you can give me kidney stones.
Interesting. So maybe looking at gut health, you know, your ability of how well you're digesting your food, the diversity and volume of your gut biome, things of that nature. So that's interesting. Are you working with someone who's talking to you about natural ways of healing that?
No.
Okay.
But I mean, things like broccoli and cauliflower isn't necessarily good for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Spinach.
Interesting.
It is.
And the thing is like Jake was saying about the gut, that if your stomach lining is replaced every 5 days and your intestines, what, 3 to 5, I mean, very quickly, you could turn around a situation like that very quickly with the right steps. So for me, it's hopeful. Yes, ma'am.
Area for near the stones in Iowa, in southwest Iowa. There are more people that have stones in there.
Really?
Yes.
So it must have to do with diet and that in the area.
The water.
Eat too much corn.
That was an easy one. I was going to go for that one. I'm glad you did. It had to be said. Huh. Interesting.
And there's a lot of hard water in that area.
Interesting. Huh. So those are just some really well-documented things that the microbiome, that's not new information. And like I said before, we've got new information pouring in daily on what kinds of things the microbiome has impact on. Let's see. We're going to talk mostly about the immune system right now. The gastrointestinal tract is the primary site of interaction between the host immune system and microorganisms, both symbiotic and pathogenic. So that's a nice way of saying what we've already heard. Everything on the outside that comes in has to go through our gut system. But the additional piece that this is saying is that our immune system, well, I want to read it because it's really fun. So you've probably heard that 70% or so of our immune system is housed in our gut. What does that actually look like? Like, what do you mean by that? That's my question. So here's what it means. Microbes and other microorganisms that enter the intestinal tract encounter macrophages, dendritic cells, B lymphocytes, and T lymphocytes found in Peyer's patches and other sites of gut-associated lymphoid tissue, also known as GALT. Here's the takeaway. Peyer's patches trap foreign particles, surveil, and then may destroy them, based on whether it's found to be friend or foe. So that is fascinating to me. So your gut microbiota is inherited at birth from your mother as you move through the vaginal canal, or not. Or not, right? I mean, I was a C-section baby, right? So after birth, if you're breastfed, you then receive what's called passive immunity through colostrum. So that is your immune system. You're not born with a fully developed, well-functioning immune system. It just doesn't work like that. So you receive that from your mother when you're breastfed, and that comes through the colostrum. If not, so what happens if not? Well, the infant must rely on an immature, underdeveloped immune system to counter all of the microorganisms and antigens that it is going to take in. Just the simple act of sucking on its hand, let alone bottle feeding and every other thing that you take in. So,
A dog helps too. If babies who are raised with a dog have fewer allergies than babies that are kept in a very clean
interesting.
environment.
Interesting. Huh.
Doesn't work with a cat, just a dog.
Huh.
Mainly
Are you a
because
dog
cat-
person?
No,
Are you?
a cat doesn't interact with the baby
Oh, that's-
too well. A dog
That's
is,
true.
A dog is more attuned to the baby, it lets it touch it,
Uh-huh.
lick on it,
Yeah.
exchange wet sloppy kisses.
Mhm.
Cats don't do that.
Not typically. Not
No,
typically.
no.
So, of course, then as we grow and develop, our diet and lifestyle have more impact on our immune system. So, what if you were C-section? Like I said, I was a C-section baby. I was adopted before birth, part of my story. I was bottle fed. I was not, I was absolutely, they didn't call it this then, but I was lactose intolerant as a baby. I was raised on goat's milk. Yes, I love the story of Heidi. Yes, I do. I no longer like goat's milk, just as an aside. I don't know. But
How do you feel about Heidi?
I still love Heidi. I read it. It's actually on my iBooks. Thank you for asking. So what we're finding is I feel like it is kind of the long way home. So we've got a product here that is actually colostrum. So there's a lot of controversy about this product. How many of you have heard about colostrum being sold as a supplement?
Not as a supplement.
Okay. Right, we've all heard of colostrum for infants. Let's see. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about my story. Huh?
It was for a lot of other kids. I can't remember right
Yeah.
now what it was for, but
Yeah. Well, and that's part of it. I mean, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of studies going on right now. They are using both human and bovine colostrum in studies from, let's see, there's infants that were premature and also had some pretty significant health issues. They also had a rotavirus, which causes extreme life-threatening diarrhea if you're a premature infant. And so they were treated with bovine colostrum, and all of their symptoms from the rotavirus went into remission. So we've got, let's see, another study was folks who have, I want to get the right name, ulcerative colitis? Mm-hmm. That is bad. That is a bad news bear. And these were, mean age of the patients was about 45, and they were treated with bovine colostrum, and the group that was treated was twice as likely to have remission of symptoms than the control group. So now, a lot of these studies, you can tell from what I'm saying, the sample groups are small. What's happening is as the results are coming in, there will be more funding and more studies done. But it's been pretty amazing so far, what we've found. So for me, what my life looked like in this area was I had chronic ear infections, the kind where you're on antibiotics but you're still having ear infections. Finally, I got my tonsils out at about age 5. One of my great childhood memories was laying on the floor just screaming and crying because it hurt so bad I just couldn't even understand it. And that's when Dad said, we're getting the tonsils out. So there's that. Let's see. I was finally diagnosed at about 11 with juvenile arthritis after a sports injury caused an orthopedic surgeon to take a look into my joints, what was going on to my joints, because basically one kind of just, crumbled, part of my knee, and they didn't understand. Well, previously we had been told that I had growing pains. I had growing pains, and I was like, wow, everyone's in a lot of pain. So I just went, all right, well, I'll do sports and ballet and soccer, and that may not have been the best choice. Later on, they said it was Osgood-Schlatter's, which doesn't even actually mean anything. So, right? It just was like, what does that actually mean, Jake? When someone's diagnosed with Osgood-Schlatter's. Yeah, yeah. So, but then later on, as we continued the investigation, I was found to have degenerative osteoarthritis in my spine with calcification, including what they call spurs. So I was in line for a spinal fusion at age 18. Wow. So that was my life with no vaginal delivery and no colostrum. I have spent many years. Well, I want to tell you one more part of that first. I was actually in Las Vegas. I had been looking so forward to this surgery. I mean, it was such a life of chronic pain. I actually came up, I was young, and I came up with a way of describing the pain in inches of knife blades, right? Because it felt like that's how far into my back it went. So it would be a 4-inch or a 6-inch, an 8-inch would put me down. But that was just my life. And I was so looking forward to the surgery. And I went to get gas at this gas station, and this, I call him an angel disguised as a veteran, right? This gentleman. I thought he was ancient. He's probably about my age now. And so he basically just talked to me about what could happen when your back was fused. And so based on that conversation, I canceled the surgery. Now, of course, as we know, that I was then non-compliant, and the doctors, they couldn't help me. I couldn't take pain pills. So that was it. They were like, okay, well, so sorry. Yeah, rock's a rock. So that really began a pretty serious quest for not just pain relief, but trying to figure out what can happen. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I don't have, I couldn't bend my knee like this. I would get water on the knee if I bent my knee that direction. So you really can recover a lot based on lifestyle supplements. However, this colostrum thing, right? It seems like the long way home, right? I'm like, well, wait a minute, what? I can get some colostrum? Like that thing that I missed all the way back at the beginning? What if this really is something that is going to help me? It's helping a whole lot of people, and infants and other people all across the globe at this point. What if it can help me? What if it can help get my gut back into shape so I can, properly synthesize vitamin K, so I can do all the things that I want to do in a healthy way. So, thank you for listening to my story. I appreciate that. Just an aside, I did find my biological family later. And it runs in the family. Like, they can't take pain pills either, different autoimmune stuff in the family. So I'm absolutely going to suggest for Christmas presents that we get each other some colostrum. So, right? So let's see.
People with cancer that swear by that too.
The diversity of the studies that colostrum is being used in and getting results in it's hard to really grasp with your mind, the different things. So it really talks again about how our gut is the seat of our health, not just our immune health, but our physical. As you saw on some of the slides, our emotional and mental health is about our gut microbiome. So Let's see if we. Oh, one of the things I liked. One of the things that the company said. One of the companies said about colostrum contains 97 immune factors, 87 growth factors, and a variety of different probiotics, along with prebiotics, that fiber that feeds the biome, so it stays around as long as it can. So I thought that's a pretty heavy hitter. So let's see. We talked about all of that.
Have you heard about fecal transplants?
I have. Actually, some of the studies that are going on involve enemas with the colostrum, both human and bovine. So very just fascinating.
What was
Absolutely.
the question? What was that question?
Have you heard about fecal transplants?
Yes.
People with a good gut biome, they are using their feces to put up into your intestinal system, and that will grow the good bacteria. It will also, if you get it from a skinny person, cause you to gradually lose weight, providing you don't override it with soda and candy and cookies and other high sugar type foods.
And this is not just a health, it's not just a health industry kind of thing. We're talking about medical personnel are doing the fecal transplants.
This isn't a freak thing. No.
Right.
We're all freaks.
Not a health nut thing,
Right.
huh? All right. I think we've talked a lot about all of this stuff. Okay, well, that's all I have to say right now about our immune system being, basically housed in our gut.
I have a question going back to those two enzymes. One was
Yes.
plant-based and one was animal-based. Because of
Yes.
what they found out about the colostrum, the bovine colostrum is more effective for rotavirus and infants like that. Wouldn't the plant-based be better than from animal?
You can get colostrum from animals, from plants.
Right.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
a mammal thing.
all right. But doesn't,
Right.
as far as the difference in enzymes between animal-based or plant-based, which is a
There's
better
different
enzyme?
characteristics to them. They work in different acidic environments.
Oh, okay.
So some of them will get burned up in our stomach acid, others
Okay.
won't. So it's good to actually diversify.
Mhm.
But you can get the majority of what you need through a plant-based enzyme if you choose to.
Okay.
Now, for me, it is more difficult for me to digest plant proteins
Really?
than it is I can digest meat, no problem. So, oh heck yeah, girl! You have some ribs? Yeah, and it's really very bio-individual. So, yes, ma'am.
I'd like to go back to one of your first fun facts.
Okay.
Mesentery is responsible for regulating white blood cells flow throughout the.
Intestinal system.
Thank you.
Yes.
You passed.
And that, yes. And like I said, I got that article. If you want, more on that, we can print that out.
I have a question.
Yes.
This new organ that has been discovered, did you say that it was attached to the spinal?
Bound to the base of the back. Well, yes.
Okay.
That's.
Well, let me ask you about this.
Okay.
There's a lot of back surgeries going on.
Oh.
Could that be affected? Could that be snipped and just really mess up everything? Or do they know?
I was just going to say.
They can, and they are looking into that.
Are they looking into it? Because my husband said like 3 back surgeries.
I've read a couple of reports.
Wow.
They've been investigating that now.
I didn't even think of that. Oh, that's awful.
I mean, that's like cut, that's
Cut your lifeline.
your lifeline.
Wow. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
question. Thanks, Jake. So, just some tips about what we can do and these are things we all already know. Maybe I'll give you some things you hadn't thought of in a minute, but healthier holidays for our guts. So during the holiday season, everything that can impact our digestive health, which of course then impacts the rest of our health, is in play. It's on the table. So we've got, let's see, travel, stress, family, overindulgence, eating things you normally don't eat, whether you overindulge or not, poor self-care. I'm probably the only one that does that through the holidays, right? Is that just me? So all of that is going on at once. So, of course, the general health of the specimen is our best ally. So, like Jake's talking about, eat fruits and vegetables. Even if you eat that cupcake, eat some, eat good food at least part of the time. If you are feeling like you are having digestive issues, get some enzymes. Just get them. Know you're going to overeat. Know you're not going to digest it well. Know you're going to feel terrible for 3 days. Just go ahead and come see us and get them. It's great to say, I'm not going to do that this year. I don't know how likely that's going to be. That's going to depend on you. But I personally do not make promises during the holidays about how I'm going to eat. That's just how it goes. Get some support. Get some support. If you're going someplace, say to them, hey, I need gluten-free. Will they listen? I hope so. Be specific. I need vegan options. That means no animal products whatsoever. And so then, of course, your family member is going to say, so that means you can have butter, right? And you're going to say, no. And so you can have these discussions and be clear and kind, but stand up for your gut, really. If you know that you have food or additive sensitivities or even allergies, eat this, not that. I love that. That is a tool that I have been using for years. So you're at McDonald's. No one wants to admit that we ever go to McDonald's, but it happens, right? So go ahead and get the chicken patty, the grilled chicken patty on the salad instead of the Big Mac and fries. Really, it's your belly will thank you for 2 days. Eat this, not that. It's a really helpful trick, really, for yourself.
Get their coffee too. It's low acid because it's Arabica, and so is Casey's coffee is Arabica.
Nice.
Arabica is a low acid. It's the same bush, but it's a different set of leaves and processing.
Okay.
But Arabica won't irritate your bladder or your stomach.
Oh.
Who?
Like I said, for me, coffee's good.
He said most.
No, most coffee is Robusta because it's cheaper.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Well,
the
I
coffee.
look at the package. It either says Arabica
Coffee discussion.
Look at the package. I just
So,
what they say.
Basically, another option that you can do is bring your food with you. We talked about it. We're health nuts. It's okay. Just go ahead and be a health nut. Bring your food with you. If you have like one of those little rolly carts, put a unicorn on it, okay? And bring it with you. Hydrate, 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 hydrate. It will help you to process foods that may not have been friendly. Yes, ma'am?
What digestive enzymes would you recommend for someone that has issues with, for example, lactose intolerance or gluten intolerance?
Different food sensitivities?
Might get just in passing. Someone cut the knife with the wrong
Right.
utensil or whatever.
Right. What do you think about that?
Is that Digest Spectrum that you have up there?
Right.
No,
right here. Yeah.
That one right there.
Excellent.
That one is meant to be used with if you have specific allergy issues. But it also is a complementary blend of, it has your protease, it has your amylase, and your lipase, so it looks at all your macronutrients plus these allergens.
Right.
So that's
Can you say the name of it, please?
This is at the Enzymatica Digest Spectrum. It doesn't have some of the animal enzymes that some of the others do. So this is kind of the lighter version. Like she was saying, if you're just getting a little bit in passing and you're not eating it, but it's still going to upset your gut, this is a good option. Good job on that, Jake. I usually ask about 10 more questions before I come to that answer, but good job. That's about, if you fall, don't go head first. So have a couple of cookies. You know, don't carry the bag with you for the rest of the day and be like, so I had a couple of cookies, so it's over anyway. Don't do it. Bring your supplements with you. Bring them with you. Include charcoal and some digestive enzymes, maybe some Saccharomyces. You know, bring it with you and take them. Take them. You know, your family already knows that you're into this. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you, Nick, what do you say is the best time to take probiotics? I normally do it when I get up on an empty stomach with a couple of bottles of water. Is that what you recommend, or you recommend taking them at night?
Either or. Whenever you take them is best.
But isn't it best on an empty stomach before
Not
you start?
necessarily.
Oh, really?
There's different strains right now, and we're still learning.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them we know are acid stable, others are not. So read your labels whenever you're looking at your probiotics. Some of them are enteric coated, bypass the stomach acid. Others, it's not important because it's not going to affect them.
Okay.
So it all depends. There's hundreds and hundreds of probiotics out there. So.
Yeah. And they all
And we're learning every day.
different philosophies. Yeah, absolutely. Just to limit stress within your control. So increase your coping activities. So if you knit, bring your knitting. Bring it with you and do it. Even 5 minutes. You know, it's like if you're carrying a heavy bag, if you put it down for like 2 minutes, it's a lot of relief. Do it. Go to your car, lock the doors, roll up the windows. People come out, just, you know, wave at them and turn away and continue your knitting or whatever it is. Take that time for yourself. A little light exercise daily is so helpful. So that's about it. Do what you can to get enough sleep. Know your limits and enforce them. Nobody else is going to do it for you. So that's it. That's all I have. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you so much. Good questions. Good seminar, guys.